New Mexico Territory, winter of 1886. The road thinned where Yucca gave up and the sky hardened to pewter. Wind rasped a dead door on an abandoned adobe. Elias Crane rode alone, brim white with salt, the saddle ticking. Beneath the hiss of sand, a thread of sound tugged at him. A child's cry cut to a whisper. He lifted his head and listened the way a man listens when the past still owes him names. He found the ruin tucked in a fold of rock. A horse blanket twitched in the dust. Lila Hart was tied to a splintered post, wrists chewed raw, hair matted with frost and blood. Two newborn girls squirmed inside the blanket, mouths rooting at air. Elias slid from the saddle and took out his knife. The wind pressed at his back. The rope fought him. He cut through anyway. When the last fiber gave, Lila fell into his arms, light as an empty canteen. Up close he saw the swollen temple and the purple grip on her throat. He looked toward the plain. 3 riders moved the far edge, small as pins, steady as a debt. He wrapped the twins in his coat and slung them tight against his chest. Don't let them see my girls. No one's touching them. He lifted Lila to the saddle and swung up behind, gathering reins and blanket in one hand. The mare felt the hurry he never spoke. They dropped into a dry arroyo, hooves knocking frost from stone. Voices rode the wind behind them. Elias cut west, letting the wash twist hide them. A mirage of memory rose, the time he'd led 3 men to a spring that wasn't there. He tucked the twins tighter. Lila breathed in ragged lengths, clutching the saddle horn. The riders closed a little. An arrow hissed from the pines and smacked a post behind. A clean warning. The riders checked. In that blink, Elias slid the mare through a screen of juniper and climbed a rock ledge that swallowed their tracks. Whoever sent the arrow knew this, ground, and didn't want blood today. He took the favor. Crane Hollow lay below at last. 1 cabin, 1 small barn, a wind pump that groaned when gusts turned it. Elias dismounted and caught Lila when her legs quit, carried her inside and laid her on the cot by the window. He fed the stove, warmed goat's milk, and touched the jars to tiny mouths that worked like they'd invented hunger. Words felt clumsy around new breath. Lila's eyes opened. She searched for the bundle, found it, and held on. You're safe. You don't know them. I know enough. He rinsed the rope burns with warm water. She flinched, then went still. Outside, the wind pump clicked. Elias moved the twins to a wooden box lined with his old shirt and shoved it near the stove, where iron ticked like a heartbeat. Your name? Lila, and they are Grace and June. He nodded. He could hear the riders milling in the wash. The arrow had sent them off for now, but not far. He stepped to the porch and let cold scrape his face clear. Coyote tracks stitched the slope. Under the porch, half buried in rime, he saw it. A torn scrap of boot leather stuck in frozen mud. He pried it free. An oval stamp bit the grain clean. Kincaid Freight. He had hauled ore once for Kincaid, before he learned what the man did to land he didn't own. Elias turned the scrap until the letters showed like a dare. Inside, Lila drifted and jerked awake. In one flash, she stood on a porch beside a husband alive, a map under a stranger's palm. "This will be easier if you stop asking where the water goes," the stranger said. In another, she was alone under a dead moon, boots circling, rope burning. She forced her eyes to the box by the stove and counted 2 breaths. Elias set a chair by the door and cleaned his rifle. Night pooled in the seams. "Sleep," Lila stared. "Why help us?" "Because I should have done it sooner, somewhere else." Footsteps crunched outside. 1 set, then 2 more, stopping beyond the porch. The mare snorted in the lean-to. A knuckle tapped the door. "Open up, rancher," a voice called. "Company from down the line." Elias looked at the stamp in his hand. Kincaid freight bright as a verdict, then closed his fist. The cabin held the kind of quiet that makes a man lay his hat softer than usual. Elias fed the stove a triangle of piñon. Resin caught, and the iron belly answered with a low hum. Wind combed the pines, set the wind pump clicking again. Click, click, like a watch trying to keep time. Lila lay on the cot under a wool blanket that smelled of horse and sunlight long gone. The twins, Grace and June, blinked at the firelight from a wooden box pulled close to the heat, mouths rooting for the world. He warmed goat's milk in 2 small jars and tested the glass on his wrist. When he tipped them, the girls worked with fierce, blind patience. Lila's shoulders loosened a notch. She pushed up on an elbow, winced, and let the cot take her weight again. "You're safe here," he said. "For how long?" "As long as it takes." She searched his face the way a thirsty person studies a cloud. He brought the basin and a strip of linen, rinsed her wrists clean of grit and blood. She watched the water go rust pink. "I'm guilty," she said. "Of what?" "Breathing where they say I shouldn't." He dipped the cloth again. Outside, the wind pump clicked faster, like someone hurrying. He moved through the cabin with the muscle memory of a man who had no one for years and had practiced not breaking the space he lived in. He hung wet linens near the stove, cut bread, laid jerky to soften. Every small thing done without noise. When he set a tin cup in her hands, her fingers trembled against the heat, but she drank. "You don't ask where I came from. You'll tell it when you've got words." A sliver of her story broke off anyway. "They said girls cost. Said I owed them a son. When the second cry came and both were daughters, the house went colder than this wind." She swallowed. "They put me outside to learn something." "What?" "How to disappear." He glanced at Mavshun, the twins. The smaller one, maybe June, had a dark curl stuck to her brow. He touched it back, and the baby caught his finger with a hand no bigger than a bird's foot. He left his finger there until the grip eased. On the hearth shelf sat a lamp without oil, a tin star with its point bent, a folded square of leather his mother once used to polish the rifle. He opened the low cupboard under the shelf, hunting for a better blanket. Hinges squealed. Inside lay a coil of rope, a broken coffee mill, and behind them a roll of dark oilcloth bound with a long dead shoelace. He pulled it out and cleared the dust. Something stitched along the edge. Tiny crosses and a run of numbers faded to ash. He didn't open it. Not yet. "Rest," he said. "I can't." "You will." He set the roll on the table. The fire lent the room a gentle pulse. Lila's eyes drifted, snagged on the lamp, and in the flame she slipped sideways into a narrow hallway she knew too well. A doorway with a man's coat hanging limp. A kitchen where a map lay spread like a hide. Blue lines veining a brown sheet. A stranger's ring clicked the table as he leaned. "This line feeds what's under dry mesa. Simple thing, Mrs. Crowley. You sign, the company steers the river underground. Your family eats." Her husband's voice thin. "Not for that price." The stranger smiled without moving his eyes. The room smelled of coal oil and rain that didn't come. Lila blinked out of it and touched her throat where the rope had burned. "Do you know Kincaid?" Elias looked at the oilcloth. "I know the freight stamp on the boot scrap outside. Kincaid puts his name on everything he wants you to believe he already owns." He took the rifle down, checked the screws, worked the lever once to feel its teeth. Lila flinched at the sound, then set her jaw like she'd decided not to. "They'll come," she said. "They already did. Something turned them." "The arrow." He nodded. Friend, maybe. Or a debt I don't know I owe." The twins squirmed and mewled. Lila leaned toward them, ribs sharp under the blanket. He lifted the box closer to her reach. She touched Grace's cheek with a knuckle, then smoothed June's shirt as if she could press courage into cloth. "You got people?" he asked. "Not the kind that helps." "Then you got me." "Why?" He searched for a way to say it that didn't make a promise bigger than the roof. "I spent a year riding a wrong map," he said. "I won't do that again." He flicked his eyes at the oilcloth. "Not with land, not with people." The wind slacked. The pump slowed. Snow lifted off the ledge and fell in soft cotton pieces. He cut more wood, set it by the door, wiped his knife on his jeans. Lila's breath deepened into sleep and skidded once when a dream caught at her heel. He tucked the blanket higher. He lit the cold lamp to see if it would hold a wick. It would, if he could find one. He opened the drawer by the table. Inside lay a pin, a nickel, and a square of blue ribbon frayed at one end. A woman's ribbon, long ago. He set it back. The oilcloth waited like a secret with its own weight. He untied the shoelace and unrolled the sheet across the table. The smell of tar and old rain rose up. Under the black, a ghost of ink gleamed when the fire shifted. Grids, hatch marks, symbols for elevation, and a thin, stubborn blue line riding east to west, cutting across a word he knew, Crane Hollow, then diving under another, Dry Mesa. In the corner, a surveyor's stamp half faded and a monogram pressed with a seal, H. He traced the blue with a fingertip. It was not a river. It was a vein. A crunch outside. Not wind. A foot where feet didn't belong. He blew the lamp dark, set a hand to the rifle, and angled his body so the door had to come through him to touch the bed. Lila stirred, eyes open at once as if fear had trained them. "Stay with them," he said. Hoof metal clicked once in the lean-to, then a voice low and careful at the porch edge. "Rancher," it said. "I sent the arrow. You don't know me yet. Name's Red Elk. You got water on that table that belongs to more than you." Elias kept the sight on the doorframe and cut a look at the blue line alive under firelight. A shadow crossed the frosted window, and a second voice breathed, "Open up, Crane, or we make your roof talk." The knock didn't wait for an answer. Elias kept the rifle low, half hidden behind the doorframe, finger resting just enough to feel the trigger's cold ridge. The second voice spoke again, calm, edged by wind. "I said the arrow was mine. I don't shoot twice unless I have to." He opened the door a hand's width. Snow slid from the roof. The man outside stood tall and still, shoulders draped in a deerskin coat stitched with red thread. A braid ran down his back, tipped with copper. Mateo Red Elk, eyes dark as creek ice. His horse stamped and snorted steam. "You shot to warn?" Elias asked. "To spare you the burial." Mateo's gaze slipped past him, finding the oilcloth spread on the table. "You unrolled what you don't understand. That line there, it's not a map of ore. It's a throat. You break it, the land will choke." Elias didn't move. "You talk like you've seen it." "I was born 2 days from Dry Mesa. The water under there's older than your country." Lila sat up on the cot. The twins stirred. "Who are you?" she asked. "Someone who owes the river," Mateo said. Elias lowered the rifle. "Come in. The wind's cutting bone." Inside, Mateo's eyes measured the room. Stove, cot, the wooden box by the fire. He nodded once as if approving the heat, then fixed on Lila's wrists. "They did that for giving life?" "They said daughters aren't worth a cowhide." Mateo's jaw flexed. "Then they don't know what keeps the world turning." He crouched by the table, tracing the blue line on the oilcloth with a scarred finger. "This, your man Kincaid. He's been digging where the ground still remembers ceremony. You see this ridge mark?" He tapped a symbol like a half-sun. "That's where the spring used to breathe. They plugged it when they found copper. Now he wants to drive tunnels from the dry side." Elias frowned. "That's Crane Hollow." Mateo nodded. "Your well's the last mouth left open. He'll come for it soon." For a while, the only sound was the stove ticking down. Lila's eyes followed the flame. "My father drew that map," she said. "He said he worked for the railroad, but he carried 2 sets of plans, one for them, one for himself." "Then he knew," Mateo said. She looked up. "Kincaid killed him. I just never proved it." Elias folded the oilcloth. "What do you want from us?" "Not want. Warn." Mateo stood. "If you guard that spring, you'll need more than a rifle. You'll need truth. People believe words more than water." Lila whispered, "Truth never stopped a bullet." "Maybe not," Mateo said. "But it gives a ghost something to haunt with." He stepped to the door. The mare whickered outside, uneasy. Elias followed. Snow was easing into sleet, the ground turning slick. From the ridge came a dull thud, distant but steady, metal against rock. "They're moving machines already," Matteo said. "I'll ride the long way around, see where they camp. You keep your fire small." Elias nodded. "I owe you one." "You owe the land," Matteo replied. Then he swung onto his horse, disappeared into the timber like smoke. Inside, Lila held one twin against her shoulder, listening to the wind pump groan. "He's right," she said. "They won't stop. They'll find the cabin sooner or later. Then why stay?" Elias looked at the oilcloth folded tight in his hand. "Because running's just dying on your feet." A faint cry came from outside. Hawk or man, it was hard to tell. He closed the shutters and threw another log in the stove. The fire caught slow, whispering. Lila's eyes tracked him. "You've been alone a long time. Long enough to forget the sound of other people breathing. You don't seem the forgetting kind." He didn't answer. He sat by the table, unwrapping the blue ribbon from the drawer, twisting it once between thumb and forefinger. "My mother tied this to my rifle when I left home. Said it'd remind me there's more ways to protect something than with bullets." Lila watched the ribbon flutter in the heat. Maybe she was right. Outside, snow turned to rain. Somewhere out in the dark, a hammer struck again, rhythmic, like a heart on the wrong side of the earth. Elias stood, shouldered the rifle, and stepped to the window. Through the blur of water, he saw faint lamplight moving between trees. 3, maybe 4 torches descending from the ridge. "They found the trail," he said. Lila's fingers tightened on the baby. "Is it them?" "Not sure yet." He blew out the lamp and the room fell into soft gray. "Get under the cot. Keep the girls quiet." He waited until she moved, then eased the bolt on the rifle. The footsteps outside were deliberate. One stopped at the pump, another circled toward the barn. A man's voice slurred. "Ain't hiding, are you, Crane? The boss wants to talk before we start blasting." Elias steadied the barrel toward the door. "Tell Kincaid he can talk when he learns to listen." Laughter answered, mean and close. "You got a woman in there, they say. Kincaid pays extra for disobedience." Lila drew a sharp breath. Elias lifted a hand without looking back. "Hush." The latch rattled. A boot kicked snow off the step. "Last chance, rancher." Elias sighted low, below the handle, where wood thinned. The next sound was the hammer caulking, the clean, final click that tells a man how short life is. Then, from somewhere beyond the trees, a sharp whistle split the dark. The men cursed, turned. A second later, something hit the ground near them. An arrow feathered, in red thread, humming where it landed. "Hell!" one shouted. "He's got friends!" They scattered toward their horses. Elias eased the trigger back down. Through the crack in the shutter, he saw the arrow's shaft still quivering in the mud, its fletching bright against the rain. He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Lila crawled out, clutching both children. "That was him again?" "Matteo," Elias said. "Looks like the wind favors us one more night." Cliffhanger. He stepped onto the porch to fetch the arrow. But before his hand reached it, a faint glimmer caught his eye beneath the puddle near the step. A second arrow, broken clean, marked with a carved symbol he'd seen once before. Kincaid's survey brand. Dawn came colorless, the kind of gray that erases edges. The cabin roof steamed as frost melted slow. Elias stood by the trough, eyes on the horizon. The broken arrow lay on the step, its shaft carved with the same double K brand he'd once seen stamped on freight wagons. Kincaid's mark, claiming even the air. He snapped it in two and tossed it into the fire. Inside, Lila rocked the twins while steam from the kettle curled around her face. "They'll come back," she said. "I know." "What will you do?" "Same thing as yesterday. Keep the fire burning and the door shut." She smiled without mirth. "That's not a plan. It's a start." Outside, hoofbeats sounded, single, cautious, and light. Elias checked the rifle, then lowered it when he saw Evelyn Parrish riding up the path. A gray mule under a red-stitched blanket. The woman sat straight, bonnet tied too tight. A jar of jam balanced in her saddlebag. Her mouth was already set for trouble. "Well now," she said, sliding down. "You look far too alive for a man folks say keeps company with ghosts." Elias opened the door wider, but not inviting. "Morning, Mrs. Parrish." She sniffed the air. "Smells like goats and secrets." Her eyes flicked toward Lila inside. "So it's true then. You've got a woman tucked away." Lila turned, holding one baby close. "I'm just passing through." "Passing through a man's cabin isn't the same as passing through his life," Evelyn said. "People talk. They'll talk louder when they find out you've got mouths to feed." Elias stepped between them. "Let 'em. Their tongues are cheaper than wood." Evelyn narrowed her eyes. "You always did fancy yourself righteous, Crane. Righteous don't keep you fed. I brought flour." She set the sack down hard. "A gift, or a warning, depending how you bake it." He didn't answer. She turned to Lila. "You'd best know this territory doesn't forgive easy. Men remember debts, and women like us pay them twice." "I've paid enough," Lila said. Evelyn studied her wrists, the faint rope scars. Something softened, then tightened again. "So had I. Once." She gathered her reins. "Tell your man the marshal's riding the ridge. He asks questions no one likes answering." When she left, the yard felt colder though the sun climbed higher. Lila folded the cloth over Grace's face. "She hates me." "She hates silence," Elias said. "It reminds her of her own." The afternoon settled in layers of pale light. Elias worked the fence line, axe clapping dry wood, while Lila scrubbed linens in a basin. She caught herself humming, a tune she didn't remember learning. The babies gurgled along. For a moment it almost felt like life beginning again. The peace didn't last. Toward dusk, a shape rode from the ridge. Heavy coat, badge glinting. Marshal Whit Dugan. The kind of man whose boots carried authority and dust in equal measure. He dismounted slow, hat in hand, smile small and practiced. "Evening, Crane. Heard you've been entertaining." Elias wiped his hands on his jeans. "You're late for supper." Dugan's eyes slid past him, finding the movement inside the window. She looks better than last they saw her. You heal fast, Mrs. Hart? Lila froze. How do you know my name? Word rides quicker than wagons. Your husband's people filed for guardianship of the twins. Paper says you're unfit. That true? Elias stepped forward. She's fit enough to live. That's more than they ever allowed her. Law's the law, friend. Dugan pulled a folded paper from his coat. Court order says I check on the children. Make sure they're being tended proper. Elias didn't move. You got a warrant to enter my home? Don't need. One to count heads. You count from there. They stared each other down till wind rattled the stovepipe. The marshal tucked the paper back. You're running a fine line, Crane. Harboring a fugitive mother, defying lawful claim. Men have swung for less. I've seen men swing for more and deserve it, Elias said. Dugan's smile vanished. I'll be back with proper ink. Tell her kin she's here. He mounted, spurred the horse once, and was gone down the slope. Inside, Lila sank onto the cot. He'll bring them. Let him try, Elias said. He set the rifle against the wall, checked the bolt, and lit the lamp. The light caught her face in gold edges. They won't stop, she whispered. I can't keep running. You're not running anymore. She looked up. You don't even know what you're risking. He picked up the old blue ribbon from the shelf, wrapped it once around his wrist. Maybe it's time I risk something worth it. Night deepened. A wolf called far off, answered by silence. Elias stepped outside to stack wood. On the horizon, faint lanterns flickered where the road bent toward the town. 3, maybe 4, like eyes watching. When he came back in, the twins slept, small fists unclenched. Lila traced one baby's cheek. They breathe soft, she said, like the storm forgot their names. The storm always remembers, he said. She met his gaze. So do you. The lamp guttered, throwing a quick shadow across the oilcloth map on the table. The folded corner lifted in the draft, revealing again the blue line that ran straight through Crane Hollow and vanished under the words Dry Mesa. The sound of the picks faded by dawn, leaving a hush that felt heavier than noise. Elias hadn't slept. He sat at the table, lamp low, watching the flame crawl along the rim of the chimney glass. Outside, mist hugged the hollow. When the first knock came, he already knew the rhythm. 2 short, 1 long. The law always had a pattern. Marshal Whit Dugan stepped through the gray, hat wet with fog. His horse snorted steam. Morning, Crane. You're up early. Didn't sleep well. Guilt'll do that. Dugan smiled, brushing his coat. Mind if I step inside? Cold enough to freeze whiskey. You got a warrant? The smile thinned. Hospitality's dying out here. Not hospitality, privacy. They stood at the threshold long enough for frost to gather on Dugan's badge. Finally, he eased back a step. Fine. I'll talk where God can hear. I've papers say Mrs. Lila Crowley's under investigation. 2 infants in her care. If she's in there, I need to see them. Elias crossed his arms. You've got papers from men who own pens, not souls. Dugan's eyes glinted. You think you're her savior? No, just her wall. The marshal sighed, a sound like a nail drawn slow. Crane, I've known you a while. You fought for the army once. You followed orders. Why break that habit now? Because I learned what they were worth. Wind whipped across the yard, snapping the oilcloth that hung on the line. Dugan's horse sidestepped, restless. He adjusted his reins, voice calm. Silas Kincaid's expanding the freight route. He's offering men work, coin, peace. You stand in his way. You stand in mine. I don't hire out to thieves. Call it what you want. Progress comes either way. The door behind Elias creaked. Lila stood there, pale against the dim light, one twin in her arms, the other bundled at her chest. Leave him, she said. Dugan tipped his hat. Ma'am, you're wanted for questioning. I can escort you to town, see you and the little ones safe. Safe? She laughed once, small and bitter. Like my husband was safe? Dugan's jaw shifted, the smile gone. That was an accident. No proof otherwise. I have proof. Elias shot her a look, subtle, warning. Dugan noticed. Proof? Not yet, she said softly. The marshal turned his horse. I'll be back with a proper order. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. He rode off, dust and mist curling behind him. When he vanished, Lila sagged against the doorframe. He's lying, she said. He's paid. Elias shut the door and dropped the bar across it. Pack what you need. You're not safe here anymore. I thought you said I wasn't running. I said I wouldn't. Never said you shouldn't. She looked at him, eyes flaring with something between anger and fear. And if they find us? Then they'll wish they hadn't. He crossed to the table, unfolded the oilcloth map again. The blue line gleamed faintly where the lamplight touched it. He said progress means blasting through dry mesa. That'll cut the underground spring. If they dam it, every homestead north of the ridge dies dry. Lila traced the line with a finger. My father wrote notes here. He marked the Moknook, Elias said. The vein they want. She looked at him. He died for this. Maybe not in vain. The door rattled. Mateo stepped in without knocking, his face streaked with dust. They've moved equipment downriver. Wagons, barrels of powder, men with drills. Kincaid's building a tunnel. Elias grabbed his coat. Then we go to Sister Agnes. Lila frowned. Why? She keeps records, births, marriages, contracts. Your husband's death certificate might prove your claim. She'll be watched. Then we'll watch back. They rode out by twilight. Elias in front, Lila behind, with the twins bundled tight, Mateo ranging the flank. The snow turned to rain halfway to town, mud sucking at the hooves. Each mile felt like a dare. At the church, light burned behind thick glass. Sister Agnes opened the door before they could knock. Her white hair glowed against the dark. I heard whispers, she said. You shouldn't have come. We need a record, Elias said. Crowley family, 2 children. Agnes led them inside. Candles flickered along the pews, smoke curling into the rafters. She opened a ledger thick with dust. Your husband's name, dear? Samuel Crowley, Lila said. The nun traced down the columns. Married, yes. Died. Entry says accident in the hills, witnessed by Matthew Crowley. Convenient that, but... She turned another page, slower. Here's a sealed letter addressed to you, delivered after his death. I kept it safe. Lila hesitated. The wax seal bore her father's monogram, an H crossed with a compass line. She didn't open it. Not yet. Thank you, Elias said. Be quick leaving, Sister Agnes whispered. The marshal's been asking which mothers passed through my door. They slipped into the rain again, letter wrapped in oilcloth. Mateo led them to a side trail. Lightning flared over the hills, and for a breath they saw 3 riders waiting near the ridge. Dugan's men, holding position. Keep low, Mateo said. They smell truth on the wind. By the time they reached the hollow, night had soaked the world black. The pool cabin's window glowed weak. Elias dismounted, carrying the twins in one arm, the rifle in the other. Lila clutched the letter as if it weighed her whole past. Inside, the fire hissed. Elias checked every shutter, every hinge. Lila sat by the stove, staring at the wax seal. What if it's another lie? She whispered. Then it's one we choose to end. He looked through the window slit. Down in the valley, torches moved again, forming a crooked line toward dry mesa. The earth trembled faintly, like something alive and restless beneath it. Rain swept the valley all night, washing the ash from the pine trunks. By morning, fog lay thick as milk. The letter's second map fragment dried by the stove, its edges curled like leaves. Elias studied it under the lamp, tracing the faint blue vein that ran beneath the ridge. Your father hid this, he said. He knew they'd twist it for copper. Lila leaned against the table, her face drawn. He worked for Kincaid once, drew plans for the railroad, but he said the line of water mattered more than any track. She turned the paper. He died before he finished the map. Mateo poured coffee from the pot, black as tar. Men who draw lines on other people's land always die with their hands open. He took a sip and added, Kincaid's wagons are 2 days out. They haul powder in barrels marked freight grain. If he blows the ridge, the water goes underground for good. Elias rolled the fragment back into the oilcloth. Then we stop him before the first fuse. Lila shook her head. How? He owns the marshal, the men, the town. Then we find what he doesn't own. Truth. She looked up. That letter said nothing else. No words. Just the map. Maybe the words are buried with someone who can still speak them, Mateo said. They exchanged a look. Elias understood. Sister Agnes. They saddled before noon, the sky bruised purple. The trail to the church wound between gullies where rainwater hissed. Lila rode behind him, the twins strapped to her chest in a sling. Each hoofstep sent cold spray against her boots. Elias's coat flared with wind. When they reached the low stone wall around the chapel, the bell hung silent, but the door stood open. Inside, candles burned, though it was day. Sister Agnes knelt near the altar, murmuring. She turned as they entered, eyes sharp despite her age. "You shouldn't have come back," she said. "The law's been sniffing at my door since dawn." Elias set his hat aside. "You hid the letter." "I hid what I could." She rose, joints cracking. "Your father, child, was no fool. He left more than ink. He buried evidence of Kincaid's drilling under the old baptismal font. Said one day his daughter would need proof that water ran deeper than greed." Lila's throat tightened. He knew they'd kill him. Faith don't stop bullets, but it can hide things better than a grave. Agnes lifted a loose stone from the floor. Beneath lay a tin box, rusted at the corners. She pried it open with a letter opener. Inside were folded blueprints, a small silver compass, and a page of notes. Elias took the compass. Its needle trembled. "Coordinates, same as the ridge." Agnes nodded. He mapped every illegal shaft Kincaid's men dug. Enough to ruin him if someone read it aloud in court. "And if the marshal owns the court?" Lila asked. "Then you speak louder." Thunder rolled. Elias wrapped the papers in his coat. "We need to get these out of town." Agnes touched his arm. "There's one more thing." From her sleeve, she pulled a worn envelope. "Your husband's signature. He refused to sell the claim before he died. That makes your daughters heirs. Kincaid can't touch the water without your consent." Lila took the envelope, fingers shaking. "Then why did they kill him?" "Because he said no twice." Mateo swore under his breath. "Men who say no to gold end up ghosts." Elias looked toward the window. Through the rain, shapes moved. 2 riders, slow circles. "We're out of time." Agnes pushed the box toward him. "Go through the vestry. There's a back trail down to Arroyo Creek. Keep left at the cottonwoods." Lila hesitated. "What about you?" The nun smiled faintly. "I've hidden sinners before." They slipped out the side door into a wash of cold rain. The trail behind the chapel narrowed between walls of red clay. Mateo led, checking the ridgeline. Elias followed with Lila and the twins. The storm muted the world to gray and soundless. Halfway down, a rifle cracked. The bullet chewed bark inches from Mateo's shoulder. "Ambush!" he shouted. Another shot rang from the opposite ridge. Elias swung the twins behind a fallen log. Lila crouched low, clutching them close. Dugan's voice carried through the rain. "Crane! Don't make this a killing! Hand over the woman and the papers!" Elias shouted back. "You've got no right!" "The badge gives me plenty." A pause, then another voice, silk and steel. Silas Kincaid himself. "Marshall's right. I own the veins, the dirt, and the law that keeps it breathing." Mateo fired once, sending splinters flying. "Then you forgot the people under that dirt." The gunfire echoed, then stopped. Silence. Kincaid's men withdrew, their lanterns retreating up the ridge. Elias waited, heart hammering. "They're pulling back." "For now," Mateo said, but next time they won't waste bullets, warning. Lila opened her hand. The compass lay warm against her skin, needle steady. This shows where they'll dig next, she said. Dry Mesa, Elias answered. They start tomorrow. He looked back toward the chapel, its bell swaying in the wind, though no one pulled the rope. Sister Agnes stood in the doorway, small against the storm, watching them go. Lila lifted a hand, but the distance swallowed her gesture. They rode into the rain, clutching the evidence tight. Night gathered as they reached the hollow. Elias set the tin box on the table beside the oilcloth map. The blue veins matched perfectly now, forming a network under Crane Hollow. This is what he died for, he said. Lila nodded, tears hidden by shadow. And what they'll kill for again. Mateo poured the last of the coffee, voice low. Then we hit first. Thunder cracked like a gun. The lamp flickered. Elias met their eyes. Tomorrow, we make them hear. The rain broke by dawn, leaving the ground slick and glittering. Steam lifted from the rocks like ghosts taking leave. Elias saddled the mare in silence. He'd been awake all night, mind gnawing at what they'd learned beneath the church floor. Lila stood in the doorway, shawl drawn tight, the compass hanging from her neck by a thread of blue ribbon. You'll need someone to watch your back, she said. You've got your hands full, he answered, glancing toward the twins asleep in their cradle. Mateo tightened the cinch on his horse. He means yes. Lila smirked faintly. Then bring them home safe. She pressed the compass flat against her heart, then tucked it beneath her collar. Find out where Kincaid hides his teeth. By midday, the town shimmered with heat, though clouds still clung to the peaks. The saloon door creaked as Elias stepped inside. Conversation stopped the way it always did when strangers carried rifles. He ordered black coffee, eyes scanning the mirror behind the bar. In the reflection, two men from Kincaid's crew played cards near the piano, badges glinting. Marshal Dugan sat among them, laughing low, a bottle of rye half gone. Mateo slid onto a stool beside him. He drinks early for a man guarding justice. He drinks to forget what he's guarding. Elias sipped his coffee, bitter as rust. The telegraph offices behind the saloon. We split there. Outside, dust rose from the freight yard. A whistle blew, high, strained. Evelyn Parrish bustled past, arms full of ledgers, face pinched tight. She spotted Elias and stopped short. You look like trouble served cold, she said. Same could be said of you. I mind my own business. He tilted his head toward the paper bundle in her hands. Then why does it say Kincaid Freight Manifest? Her lips thinned. Because it's safer with me than with him. But that doesn't mean I'll hand it to you. Then sell it. Time 300 malms. I don't sell to lost causes. She turned, hesitated. Check the wires at the telegraph. There's a message waiting. Someone forgot to pick it up. Elias caught Mateo's eye. Keep her talking. He slipped down the alley. Inside the telegraph shack, the operator napped behind the counter, boots up. A half-written message sat on the table. Dry Mesa. Digging begins at sundown. Powder ready. D. The last letter smeared by an ink blot. Elias scanned the drawers, found a carbon copy beneath. Dry Mesa. Dig under stream before rain returns. He folded it, slipped it into his coat, and turned to leave. The door swung open. Dugan filled it, face flushed from drink. Didn't figure you for the reading type. Only when the words bite. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. The marshal's hand hovered near his gun. I could shoot you where you stand and call it self-defense. You'd have to spell it first. For a breath, no one moved. Then Evelyn's voice cut from outside. Marshal, Kincaid wants you at the yard, now. Dugan's scowl flickered. He lowered his hand and stepped back. Another day, Crane. When he left, Evelyn slipped in through the back door, cheeks flushed. You owe me. Add it to the flower tab. She threw him a glare, but curiosity sparkled behind it. What's on that paper? The end of someone's patience. He showed her the copy. She read it once, eyes widening. He's drilling under the creek. That'll drain the whole basin. That's the plan. She hesitated, biting her lip. There's something you don't know. What's that? I might have told Kincaid about your cabin. Elias went still. When? Last week. I didn't think he'd care. He paid for a map of the ridge and she broke off, shame flickering. I didn't know he'd send men to kill her. You just pointed them where to look. I'm trying to fix it. Then start talking. She nodded, voice dropping. Tonight he's sending 3 wagons from the freight yard. One carries tools, the second explosives, the third documents. If you get those papers, you'll have proof. Mateo stepped in, shaking rain off his hat. We can stop 1 wagon easy. Stopping 3 takes ghosts. Elias looked at Evelyn. Can you open the yard gate? I can. Then you'll earn your forgiveness. Night fell quick. The town dimmed to lantern light. They waited near the rail fence as freight hands loaded barrels. Dugan rode beside Kincaid, who barked orders. When the last wagon rolled out, Elias and Mateo followed along the Arroyo Road. The moon bled through clouds. Half a mile out, a rifle cracked from the ridge. Mateo's signal. The first wagon lurched as its front wheel shattered. Men shouted. Elias ran from cover, fired once to scatter them, then grabbed the satchel from the broken seat. He swung onto his horse and rode hard. Bullets sang past, pinging rock. Mateo covered him, dropping behind with a throw of fire. Lantern oil igniting the empty wagon. Flames rose bright, turning night to copper. They didn't stop till the town lights vanished. At the river crossing, Elias opened the satchel. Inside, ledgers stamped Kincaid mining and freight, pages listing bribes, land deeds, and a sketch of the underground shafts. Every line led to the same phrase, Crane Hollow Conduit. So that's his heart, Mateo said, and now we know where to cut it. Elias tied the satchel shut. We take this to Sister Agnes. She'll know how to read it. A howl echoed across the canyon. Wolves or men? Elias glanced back. On the ridge, a single lantern burned steady. Dugan, watching. He turned his horse toward the dark plain. We ride before the dawn finds us. At Crane Hollow, Lila waited by the stove, twins quiet in her arms. The compass on her neck spun once, then steadied. When Elias stepped inside, dripping and cold, she saw the dirt on his coat and the papers clutched tight. "Did you find what you needed?" He nodded. "And what we feared? What now?" "Now," he said, setting the satchel beside the oilcloth map, "we start telling the truth out loud." The dawn came copper and cruel, painting dry mesa in dust and steam. Elias spread the stolen ledgers on the table. Every page bled numbers, deeds, and false signatures tying Kincaid to the mines. The proof glimmered like a blade. "He's bought half the county," he said. Lila fed the stove, eyes shadowed from sleeplessness. "Then we can't fight him with paper." Mateo leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "We fight him with the ground he thinks he owns." Evelyn sat near the window, wringing her gloves. "He'll kill us for that ledger." "He'll try," Elias said. He slid the compass across the table toward Lila. "Your father built a map. Now we finish it." She unfolded the second fragment, laid it beside the first. The blue lines met like veins finding a heart, running straight under Crane Hollow, curling toward the dry creek bed. She pressed her palm over the seam. "This was his plan," she whispered. "The spring under us isn't dead. It's trapped." "Trapped by what?" Evelyn asked. "Copper veins and greed," Mateo said. "They drove stakes where the water sleeps." Lila looked up. "Then we free it." Before Elias could answer, the twins began to cry. He watched her rock them, face lit by firelight. There was strength there now, quiet, stubborn, the kind that roots in stone. "You sound like him," he said softly. "Like my father?" "No, like someone who knows what must outlive her." A knock broke the moment, soft but urgent. Elias snatched his rifle, signaled Mateo to flank the door. When he opened it, the wind shoved in a curtain of dust and a figure stumbled through. Sister Agnes, cloak soaked, breath ragged. "They're coming!" she gasped. "Marshal Dugan, with 6 riders. They say you stole county records. Kincaid's paying $50 a head." Evelyn paled. 50 each? Alive or dead? Elias helped the nun to a chair. "How far behind?" "Less than an hour." She caught sight of the map. "You found it." "We did," Lila said. "And the ledgers." Agnes's eyes softened. "Then your father's death won't go unanswered." She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small metal seal, a notary stamp. "He left this too, his signature on the water rights deed. Your name sits beside his." Lila froze. "That makes me the owner?" "And the guardian," Agnes said. "If you file this, the spring belongs to your bloodline, not the mine." Evelyn whispered. "Then Kincaid can't drill." "Not legally," Mateo said. "But law don't stop dynamite." Elias folded the papers. "We need to move before Dugan reaches the ridge. Mateo, ride east, warn your people. We'll take Lila and the girls to the canyon. Hide in the old diggings." Mateo nodded. "I'll bring smoke signals when it's safe." He grabbed his bow, vanished into the dust. Evelyn lingered by the door. "If I ride back to town, I can stall Dugan. Tell him you fled north." "Why would you risk that?" Elias asked. She looked at Lila. Because I'm tired of being the echo of men like Kincaid. He studied her, then handed her a folded page from the ledger. Show this to the judge if you make it. It'll speak louder than bullets. Evelyn tucked it inside her dress. You'd better be alive when I return. By afternoon, they'd reached the canyon. Wind roared through the ravine, scattering dust like smoke. Elias led the mare into the shelter of a collapsed shaft. The ground smelled of rust and wet earth, the buried heart of the land. Lila laid the twins in a cradle of blankets, then opened the map again. My father wrote coordinates here, she said, under the north wall. That's where the water runs shallowest. Elias took the pickaxe from the old mine rack. Then we dig, the first strike rang hollow, echoing down stone ribs. They worked together, Elias swinging, Lila clearing debris with a broken shovel. Hours passed. Sweat darkened his shirt. Dust painted her hair gray. When his pick hit softer clay, a faint dampness rose. Here, he said. They widened the crack, and a thin trickle of water bled through, shining silver. Lila knelt, cupping it with both hands. It's alive. That's the proof, Agnes said quietly. No jury can deny living water. Elias nodded, then froze. From above came the rattle of stones, the echo of hooves. Voices carried through the canyon. Crane, come on out! Dugan's voice thundered. You're surrounded. Elias snuffed the lamp. Agnes, keep low. He moved toward the mouth of the shaft, rifle ready. Hand over the woman, Dugan called. No need for shooting. Lila whispered. He doesn't want me. He wants the papers. Then he'll have to crawl through the earth to get them. Gunfire erupted, a flash against rock. Elias returned fire, aiming for sound, not sight. Mateo's signal smoke rose faintly from the eastern ridge, a gray spiral against dusk. Reinforcements coming. One bullet sparked near the entrance, grazing Elias's shoulder. He gritted his teeth. We can't hold them long. Agnes clutched the deed. Take it. If they catch me, they'll burn this. He shook his head. You'll outlive us all, sister. The wind shifted. Lila spotted something glinting near the canyon floor. An old mining cart filled with oil barrels. She met Elias's eyes. If they want to blast, let's show them what it costs. He understood instantly. Together they rolled the cart toward the entrance. Gunfire cracked again. A bullet struck the rim, sparking. Now! She shouted. He fired once into the barrel. Flame exploded outward, swallowing the mouth of the shaft. The blast threw dust and fire into the sky, scattering Dugan's men like ants. When the smoke cleared, silence filled the canyon, thick as prayer. Elias coughed through the haze, hand still gripping hers. The spring trickled louder, fed by the fractured stone. Lila looked at the water spreading across the floor. The land remembers, she said, and now it speaks. The next morning broke clear, a sky polished clean after fire and rain. From Crane Hollow, smoke no longer rose, only mist curling above damp earth. Lila stood on the porch, hair undone, the compass glinting at her throat. They'll go to town, she said. Make it look like we burned ourselves out. Elias strapped his rifle. Then we show them we're still breathing. By noon, the town of Las Serenas was dressed for its annual harvest fair. Flags rippled across the street. Fiddles scraped. Children ran between wagons chasing ribbons. The smell of corn cakes and gun oil hung together, sweet and sharp. Beneath it all, Kincaid's banners fluttered over the freight yard. Progress for the territory. Elias rode in with his hat low, Mateo trailing a wagon of grain to disguise their arrival. Sister Agnes sat beside them, face calm as stone. Lila, in a borrowed shawl, carried a basket that hid the folded deed. "Stay near the crowd," Elias said. "Noise makes good cover." Mateo nodded. "Noise hides ghosts, too." They slipped into the square. The brass band wheezed through a hymn-turned waltz. Marshal Dugan stood near the courthouse steps, badge polished new, hand resting lazy on his revolver. He spotted Elias but didn't move, just smiled like a man waiting for rain to ruin someone else's day. Kincaid appeared on the platform, coat white as bone, voice loud enough to drown the music. "Friends, we gather for prosperity. The mines bring jobs, the freight brings gold, and soon water will flow to every corner of this desert." Lila's grip tightened on the basket. "He's talking about our spring." Agnes murmured, "Not for long." As applause rippled, another man stepped from the crowd. Matthew Crowley, younger than Elias remembered, eyes slick with false sorrow. He wore a black coat, the Crowley family crest pinned at the lapel. "Time for hums." He approached Lila slowly, hat in hand. "Sister-in-law," he said, "I heard what happened. I thought you dead." She froze. "You thought or you hoped?" He smiled faintly. "Both, maybe. I came to make peace." "Peace with ghosts?" "With family, and to offer help." He reached into his coat, pulling a folded document. "Guardianship papers. Sign, and the twins stay yours, safe under my name. No more running." Elias stepped closer. "And what do you take in return?" Matthew's gaze flicked toward the basket. "Just what's owed the family. My brother's estate. The well, the spring, Crowley land." Lila's voice was steady now. "My husband refused to sell to Kincaid. You stood beside him the day he died. Which side of the rope were you on?" He blinked just once. "You're mistaken." Agnes crossed herself. "God sees through ink and lies alike." Kincaid's laughter carried from the platform. "I see old friends uniting." He stepped down, extending a hand to Matthew. "The Crowley heir and I have an arrangement. Water rights for prosperity. Isn't that right, son?" Elias's stomach turned. "You sold your brother's grave," he said. Matthew's hand trembled. "I secured our future." Lila's face hardened. "Then your future ends with mine." Kincaid clapped twice. "Marshal!" Dugan strode forward, boots crunching. "Elias Crane, you're under arrest for theft, destruction of property, and murder of 2 county deputies." Elias didn't flinch. I buried those men you sent. I didn't send anyone. You wear their dust. The marshal's gun cleared leather. Mateo shifted behind the wagon, hand on his bow. The crowd edged back, excitement rippling like fever. Lila stepped forward, holding the basket high. Before you hang a man, read what he stands for. She opened the cloth. Inside lay the deed, bright under the sun. My father's seal, my husband's signature. Legal guardianship of the Crane Hollow Spring to Lila Hart Crowley and her heirs. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even Dugan hesitated. Kincaid's smile cracked. Forgery. Sister Agnes raised her voice, clear and commanding. Witnessed by the Church of Las Serenas, October 1884. She held up the notary seal. By my hand. The marshal faltered. If that's true, the spring belongs to her. Belongs to no one, Elias said. It feeds everyone. Kincaid's jaw clenched. You think paper will stop me? He turned toward Matthew. Do it. Matthew hesitated. For a second, guilt flickered in his eyes, then died. He drew a pistol, fast but shaking. I'm sorry, Lila. Elias shoved her down as the gun fired. The bullet tore through his sleeve. Mateo's arrow sang a half-beat later, striking Matthew's wrist. The gun fell, spinning into dust. Chaos exploded. Shouting, horses rearing, the brass band breaking mid-note. Kincaid ran for the freight yard. Dugan shouted orders, torn between law and loyalty. Elias caught Lila's arm. Go! Get the babies! Mateo grabbed the dropped gun. I'll cover! They fled through the milling crowd, ducking under banners. Behind them, smoke billowed where someone kicked over a lantern. Evelyn Parrish appeared from the alley, breathless. I told you I'd come back! Get the wagon! Elias barked. She nodded and vanished. At the edge of town, they reached the hill. Lila looked back once. Matthew clutching his bleeding wrist, Dugan shouting into the chaos, and Kincaid climbing into his carriage, face white with fury. Elias wiped the blood from his arm. It's begun. What has? She asked. The war for what's under our feet. That night, thunder rolled across the mesa, echoing gunfire from miles away. Elias sat cleaning his rifle by lamplight. Lila bound his arm, silent. Outside, Mateo watched the ridge, smoke from torches rising again. They'll regroup by dawn, he said. Kincaid won't lose face twice. Elias nodded. Then we take the fight to him. Lila touched the deed. Tomorrow? Tomorrow, he said. Dry mesa. The wind changed by evening, sweeping east across the valley, dry and sharp as iron filings. From the ridge, Elias watched the freight wagons crawl toward the canyon mouth. 3 in all, lanterns swinging like slow heartbeats. That's them, he said. Powder in the first, tools in the second, documents in the last. Mateo crouched beside him, face painted with ash. My people wait beyond the ravine. When the flame rises, we move. Lila sat behind a rock, tucking the twins under a blanket in the wagon Evelyn had hidden among the scrub. Sister Agnes murmured over them a prayer as soft as wind through pine. You've both sinned enough for one lifetime, she said. Don't add dying to the list. Elias checked his rifle. No promises, sister. Lila met his eyes. You don't have to do this. I do, he said. You gave them names. Now we make sure they have land to grow into. Evelyn passed him a flask. For courage or stupidity, whichever runs out last. They shared a look, quick and human. Then Elias rose, signaling to Mateo. The night swallowed them. Down in the basin, the wagons rattled along the carved trail. Torches burned low to hide the light. Marshal Dugan rode ahead, jaw clenched, Kincaid beside him in a coat too clean for dirt. You sure Crane's here? Dugan asked. He's stubborn, Kincaid said. Men like him die defending ghosts. The marshal didn't answer. The moon hung dull behind smoke. He fingered the badge at his chest as if testing its weight. From the ridge came a hawk's cry. Mateo's signal. Elias shifted behind a boulder, whispered, Now. Flames burst from the hillside. Arrows dipped in oil streaked downward, striking the first wagon. The barrels inside bloomed into fire. Horses screamed. Men shouted orders. Kincaid ducked behind the second wagon, shouting, Put it out! Elias sprinted through smoke, leapt onto the lead wagon, and slashed the reins. The team bolted, dragging the flaming cart toward the cliffs. He dove clear as it crashed, the explosion rolling across the canyon like thunder. Dugan's horse reared. God Almighty! Not God, Elias shouted. Just consequence. Bullets sparked off rock. Mateo's men moved through the smoke, silent, precise, pushing the remaining wagons toward the ravine. Evelyn fired from cover, keeping the guards pinned. Lila appeared at the trail's edge, compass in hand, using its glint to signal. The last wagon swerved toward her, its driver half blind from smoke. She pulled a fuse from her belt, struck it against stone, and hurled it into the open bed. The explosion split the night again, sending shards of metal into the dark. Kincaid crawled from the dirt, face black with soot. You think you've won? He spat. You've buried your own water. Lila stood tall on the ridge. Better buried than stolen. He raised his pistol. Dugan caught his wrist mid-swing. Enough, the marshal said. Kincaid turned on him. You work for me. Not tonight. Dugan's voice was low, final. He pointed the revolver away from Lila and back toward his employer. I seen what you do to land and people. You don't own either. You'll hang with them, Kincaid roared. Maybe, Dugan said, but not for you. A single shot cracked. Smoke drifted. Kincaid staggered, eyes wide, and fell backward into the dust. For a long breath, no one moved. Then the ground shuddered. Get back, Elias yelled. The dynamite had loosened the buried veins. The mesa trembled, cracking open like dry bark. A rush of water surged upward, roaring through the ravine. Clear, fierce, alive. It burst from the fissure and cascaded down the slope, washing over the wreckage, flooding the freight road. Lila watched, tears cutting clean lines through the dust. He was right, she whispered. The spring still remembers. Elias caught her hand before the current reached them. Then it's time it learned new names. Matteo climbed the ridge, rain of mist on his shoulders. "Water's free again," he said. "The land breathes." Dugan stood apart, badge tarnished by soot. "What now?" he asked. "You make it right," Elias said. "Tell them Kincaid died by his own hand, and the spring belongs to no one." The marshal nodded once. "I'll write the truth, for once." They turned toward the wagon where the twins slept. Evelyn knelt beside it, hair singed, grin fierce. "Still breathing," she said. Sister Agnes crossed herself. "Then so are we." Behind them, the flood settled into a new river, winding through the valley like a silver scar. The air smelled of iron and rain. The moon broke through clouds at last, bright enough to see faces again. Lila touched Elias's arm. "I didn't think justice looked like this." "It never does," he said. They buried the dead at dawn. Men from both sides. Dugan said a few words no one answered. Matteo marked the ground with a cedar branch. When it was done, silence returned, broken only by the rush of water below. Lila laid the compass on a stone. "Let it point home," she whispered. Elias brushed dust from his coat. "Home's wherever the fire keeps burning." She smiled faintly. "Then we already have one." Morning spread slow across the scarred valley. Steam rose where fire had been, and the new river ran bronze under the first light. The ground still trembled in small breaths, as if remembering. Elias stood at the edge of the floodplain, sleeves rolled, boots caked with clay. Behind him, the cabin smoke rose thin and straight for the first time in months. Matteo waded knee-deep in the current, stacking stones to shape a dam for the coming thaw. "This land's got lungs again," he said, "but lungs need guardians." Elias nodded. "And names." He turned as hoofbeats approached. The marshal riding from the east, hat low, arm bound in a sling. Dugan dismounted without a word and handed Elias a folded sheet. "Signed this morning," he said. "Official deed transfer. Water rights restored to Lila Hart Crowley by authority of the county court. Took some convincing." Elias unfolded the paper. Kincaid's seal had been struck through with a single black line. "You spoke truth, then." "I owed it," Dugan said. "Kincaid bought my silence with silver. You paid for it with blood. We call that even." Lila stepped out from the cabin, twins on her hip, Sister Agnes close behind. Her dress clung damp from washing. Her face was tired, but alive. "He's gone?" she asked. "Buried under his own tunnel," Dugan said. "Let the ground keep him." She looked to the running water. "Then it's finished." "Not yet," Matteo said. "The land remembers wrongs till they're balanced." He nodded toward the ridge. "Matthew rides with 2 men. He'll come for the paper." Elias felt the ache return behind his ribs. "He'll come for revenge." They gathered at the hollow's center, where the new river bent. Dugan planted a post in the mud, driving it deep. From his saddlebag, he drew a small tin plaque engraved with both an eagle and a thunderbird. "Joint stewardship," he said. "County and tribe, both hands on the wheel. Time 400 mems." Mateo smiled faintly. Balance. Elias took the hammer, struck the final nail. Done. The sound echoed clean. Agnes opened her ledger. Witnessed and recorded, she murmured. May it hold. Wind stirred the water's surface, scattering reflected light across their faces. For a moment, everything stilled, the hush that comes only when the earth is listening. Then gunfire cracked from the ridge. Elias shoved Lila behind the post, drawing his rifle in one motion. Dugan dropped to a knee, returning fire. The shots echoed, clipped short. Dust kicked from the rocks above. Matthew Crowley rode into view, coat torn, face half-shadowed. You stole my family's name, he shouted. You sold it, Elias called back. Matthew leveled his pistol. You took her from me. She was never yours. He fired once. The bullet sang past Lila's head and struck the river, splashing high. Elias took aim, but hesitated when he saw the madness in the younger man's eyes. Too much grief tangled with pride. Don't do this, he said. Your brother died trying to save that spring. My brother died poor, Matthew yelled. I won't. Another shot. This time Dugan's gun barked back, and Matthew's arm snapped sideways. The pistol fell. He sat in the saddle a moment, bleeding, then slumped and slid to the ground. Mateo rode up, disarmed the remaining men without a word. Lila moved closer, twins wailing softly. She knelt by Matthew, pressing a cloth to his wound. He looked at her, eyes clouded. You could have left me. I could have, she said. But mercy runs in the same water as blood. He tried to laugh, coughed instead, then looked at Elias. You think this ends here? It has to start somewhere. Matthew's eyes rolled toward the river. Then let it start with you. His breath left him like wind through dry grass. Silence folded back over the hollow. Lila closed his eyes. The babies fussed, then quieted as the wind shifted warm. Evelyn Parrish arrived from the trail, leading a cart stacked with blankets and tools. I heard shots, she said, breathless. Tell me it's over. It's over, Elias said. Dugan holstered his revolver. I'll write the report myself. Death by pride. Justice by chance. By water, Mateo corrected. They all looked down as the current lapped over their boots. Clear, cold, alive. That evening, they built a cairn of river stones for the dead. Kincaid, Matthew, the nameless men who'd followed greed into the dust. Lila placed a single sprig of sage at the top. The smell drifted sweet and sharp. The land forgives slower than people, she said. Elias answered, sometimes it forgives better. Sister Agnes raised a hand in blessing. Then may it forgive us all. As night deepened, they sat around a small fire. Dugan poured the last of his whiskey into the dirt, a rough libation. To what's left, he said. Mateo added, to what returns. Evelyn smiled faintly. To second chances. Lila leaned against Elias's shoulder, watching sparks twist up into the stars. Feels like breathing again, she whispered. He took her hand. That's what freedom sounds like. The river murmured below them, running steady through its new course. Somewhere an owl called, low and patient. Spring settled slow across Crane Hollow. The river, once a trickle of ghost water, now ran full and clear through the valley. Cottonwood leaves shivered like coins. The grass grew high enough to hide the old wagon ruts where Kincaid's men had died. From the porch, Elias watched the light move over the fields. Morning to noon, noon to dusk, like time forgiving itself. Lila came from the cabin carrying a bowl of dough, hair tied back with the faded blue ribbon he'd once used to mark his rifle. "They're walking now," she said. "Both of them?" "Grace, mostly. June just falls better." He smiled, faint and proud. "Takes after her mother." She set the bowl on the rail, wiping flour from her hands. "We'll need a bigger table soon." "Then I'll build one." He said it simply, the way a man promises rain. The quiet between them felt full, not empty. Inside, the twins babbled, chasing each other's shadows across the floorboards. Sister Agnes had moved back to town, but left a small cross nailed above the door. Mateo still visited with news from the tribe. Fishing good, the earth healing, the spring still singing underground. Even Evelyn stopped by once a week with her mule and gossip, claiming she came for bread, but always staying for supper. "You think they'll ever stop talking?" Lila asked one afternoon. "About what?" "About me. About you. About what we did." Elias looked at the smoke curling from the chimney. "Stories fade. Rivers don't." She watched him measure the doorframe, sawdust clinging to his shirt. The sun lit his hair copper. For the first time since that night in the desert, she felt the ache of safety, the sweet, terrifying kind that made you want to believe in tomorrow. When he noticed her staring, he paused. "Something wrong?" "Just thinking how far this place is from where we started." "Far enough," he said. "Close enough, too." He went back to hammering the last plank. Each strike echoed against the hills like a heartbeat calling them home. At dusk, the valley filled with gold light. The twins toddled across the porch, clumsy feet finding rhythm on old wood. Grace carried a pebble she called her moon. June just laughed, chasing a moth. Lila knelt beside them, tucking hair behind her ear. Elias came from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. "Fence is done," he said. "Keeps coyotes out, maybe even rumors." "Nothing keeps those out," Lila said. He leaned against the rail. "Then we'll outlast them." The smell of fresh bread drifted from the kitchen. Evelyn's laughter floated from down the path. "Don't burn it this time," followed by Mateo's low reply about how even mistakes tasted better here. When the sun slipped behind the ridge, Elias lit the porch lamp. The flame caught in his eyes, steady and warm. "You ever miss the road?" he asked. "Sometimes," she said. "But it doesn't miss me." He nodded. "Good." She reached into her pocket, pulled out the handkerchief he'd given her the night they met. Washed, mended, folded neat. "I kept it," she said. He looked down at it, at her hands. "You don't owe me anything." "I know." She took his hand, pressed the cloth into his palm. "But maybe you'll let me give something back." He turned it over once, thumb tracing the stitched initials, EC. "I don't have a ring," he said quietly. Lila smiled. "But you have a house." She glanced toward the window where the fire flickered. "And the house knows my name." He let the words settle, as gentle as falling ash. Then he stepped closer, resting his forehead against hers. No promises, no grand vows, just breath shared in the same light. Inside, the twins giggled at nothing at all. The sound filled every empty corner. Later, they sat together on the porch while the stars came out. Mateo played a wooden flute somewhere near the river. Evelyn hummed along, badly. Dugan's distant campfire burned on the ridge. He'd taken to patrolling once a month, half out of duty, half out of penance. The land, at last, was quiet. Lila leaned into Elias, watching the sky. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" He took a long breath. "No more running. No more pain. Just this." She nodded. "Just this." The wind stirred, carrying the scent of sage and smoke. From the cabin, a spark leapt from the hearth, drifted upward, and vanished among the stars. He whispered, "Home." She answered, and it stayed. In the stillness that followed, the fire inside the cabin burned low but never out. 2 children slept. 2 hearts kept watch. And beyond the porch, the river spoke in quiet syllables, carving their names into the earth. As the river found its course again, so did they. Elias and Lila's story wasn't just about surviving the desert or defying greed. It was about learning that love, like water, finds its way back no matter how long it's been buried. The cabin at Crane Hollow still stands, they say, and when the wind moves through the cottonwoods, you can almost hear laughter, the kind that only grows after pain has gone quiet. If this tale of second chances and steadfast hearts touched something in you, let it linger a while. Maybe it reminded you of your own road, the one that curved harder than you expected but still brought you home. We'd love to know what you felt, what memories this story stirred. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. They mean more than you know. And if you'd like to ride along for more Western tales of courage, forgiveness, and the quiet kind of love that endures, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive, just like the fire that never went out in Crane Hollow. Until next time, friends, keep your hearts steady, your coffee strong, and your saddles facing the sunrise.